Hello everyone, it's Meg and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys some non-fiction books that I want to read. It is one of my goals in 2020 to read more non-fiction, and slowly I have been accumulating a list of some non-fiction books I want to read, and there are quite a few, but I have narrowed it down to the top 10 that I would like to read the most. I'm definitely not going to read them all in 2020. I don't even have a number. I just want to be able to try and read them as much as possible, and I thought I would share them with you guys because obviously I love reading fiction, but non-fiction can be really insightful and helpful, and especially for me as a small business owner as well. Most of these books are actually business related, so I don't actually know a lot about the majority of these books, so hopefully you guys won't mind the fact that they're mainly businessy books, but I feel like you can apply most of these to being like a creator in general, whether you do booktube or you're some other form of creator, because if you guys didn't know, I'm sure most of you do, but I'm a photographer, so that is why I want to read quite a few of these books. But yes, I thought I would share these books with you guys today. So without further ado, let's get into the video. The first book that I have on this list is Brave New Girl by Chloe Brotheridge. This is a book that's all about confidence, and I read Chloe's debut novel in 2018, which is The Anxiety Solution, and I really enjoyed it. So I was really excited when I found out she was coming out with a new book, and I genuinely don't know a lot about it apart from the fact that it is about building confidence. And I'm guessing it's going to be in a similar format to The Anxiety Solution, where obviously she tells about her stories and experiences and also gives you some really helpful tips and advice and exercises, and also shares other people's stories. And I'm just really looking forward to it. This is probably one of the ones that I'm most excited for on this list, and once I have narrowed my TBR down again, I will definitely be purchasing it, because I really enjoy her writing and her books are very easy to understand and they're not intimidating, because I feel like some non-fiction books are really intimidating because there's either lots of tiny text or it's in a language that you can't understand. But Chloe's books are really easy to understand and they're also very helpful and practical, so I'm definitely looking forward to reading this book at some point this year. Next up we have The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And this is a book I don't know much about, but I heard Eileen from Lavender talk about it. If you haven't heard of Lavender, go and check her channel out. She is amazing, and she mentioned this book in one of her videos. I think she's probably mentioned it in a couple of videos, and there's a couple of things that she's learnt from it, such as doing morning pages and I don't know, it's like artist days or having a creative day, something along those lines, but it's all about being an artist, and I guess it's kind of growing and strengthening your artist from within. And I'm sure this book has some exercises as well, I think, but it just seems like a book that's really interesting, and I'm definitely willing to give it a go, because even though I love books that are on the business side as well, I also love books that deal with creativity and kind of help you grow and expand as a creator in whatever field you are in. So again, this is another book that's probably one of the top on my list, and I'm really looking forward to getting to it at some point. Next up I have The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And I believe Tim wrote a book called The Miracle Morning, and I think he is the one who wrote it. I did listen to that on audiobook and I found that really interesting. I listened to it a good couple of years ago now, but this is the one about the 4-hour workweek, which sounds really interesting. And again, don't know much about it apart from the fact that it tells you how you can work 4 hours a week, and who doesn't want to narrow as much time down as working but having an impact at the same time? I sure do. So I'm guessing if this will be a bit like The Miracle Morning, it'll tell about Tim's experiences and also his clients' experiences or people he knows, and also some tips and advice as well. Like the majority of these books will be that sort of format, but I really enjoyed that, and I might see if I can get it on audiobook. I can't remember if I do or not. I have seen the physical book and I think it's a bit thicker. I was bargaining on, because generally I prefer to read non-fiction, listen to non-fiction books on audiobook. It's just the way I prefer to consume it. But again, it's just a book that I'm really interested in, and The Miracle Morning did have quite a large impact on my life and my day-to-day life. I still use quite a lot of the tips that are in that book now. So I'm really interested to get into this book at some point and seeing if it makes an impact as well. Next up we have Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk. I mentioned one of Gary's previous books called Crushing It in a recent read video, and I wasn't a massive fan of that. But I feel like Crush It might be a little bit more relatable. It's a bit of a longer book, and I don't know a lot about it apart from the fact that it's about business, and so many business and entrepreneur people across all the social media as well as YouTube have been raising to the heavens about how wonderful this book is. So again, it's just a book that I'm very curious to read, and I listened to Gary's other book on audio and I have the audiobook for this book as well, so that's probably the way I'm going to do it, as Gary does narrate the books and he also goes off on a few different tangents that are not in the book, which I do enjoy. So yeah, another book that I'm just really curious to see what I think, and hopefully I will find it a bit more useful than his other book. Next up we have The $1 Million Blog by Natasha Courtney Smith. This is another book, it's probably one of my top that I want to read on this list. I have had this book, I keep putting it in and out of my Amazon baskets for years, but I really want to read it because I have a blog that goes along with my business. It's not always business related stuff, but I do have a blog, and I am still trying to find my feet with my blog. I've had it since 2017 and I'm still trying to figure out the content that I want to create in it. And I have had people in my industry read this book and have really enjoyed it. The reviews seem really wonderful, so it's a book that I definitely want to try and read at some point in the very near future. Next up we have Building a Story Brand by Miller Donald. This is one that I came off on a whim. I don't think I've heard that many people talk about it, but the reviews look good online, and again, a book that I don't know much about, but it's to do with a story brand, and I love stories. Obviously booktube and reading is a big part of that, but making my business is basically based around the idea of stories, and that is what you do as a photographer. You create stories and you capture stories and you're a storyteller, you're a visual storyteller, and that's what I believe that I am. So I'm really interested in doing this kind of, I guess, obviously building your brand, but as a storyteller. Like, I don't have much more to say than that, but it just seems like a really interesting book, and I think this is another one that I have the audiobook for, so another one that I definitely want to get to at some point this year. Next up we have two books by the same author, and that is You Are a Badass at Making Money and You Are a Badass Every Day by Jen Sincero. I listened to Jen's first book, I think it's her first book at any rate, You Are a Badass, which I listened to a number of years ago on audio, and Jen narrates it and I really enjoyed it. And since then she has come up with two more books, and the You Are a Badass Every Day is the most recent one. I think it might have come out last year, if not maybe the year before. But I'm just really interested. Again, they're books that I have heard good things about, and I really enjoyed her first book, and I should go back and reread it, to be honest with you, because it's been a while. But obviously You Are a Badass at Making Money is all about money and finances, which is something that not a lot of people like to talk about, especially me. But I feel like reading that book with Jen's writing and her perspective, I feel like will be really insightful and useful to me. And I literally know nothing about the everyday one. I'm guessing it's just how to be a badass every day, like it says in the title. So two books that I desperately want to get to at some point again, because I really enjoy Jen and her writing and her perspectives. So hopefully it's another one that I can get to fairly soon. Next up we have a book that is actually somewhat related to reading and writing, and that is A Poetry Handbook by Mary Oliver. This is another book I have been wanting for years. Like, I am not kidding you, I have been wanting this book for so long, but I have never bought it for myself, and I don't know why. I don't know much about this book again, but obviously it's a handbook about poetry, and it is by my favourite poet, Mary Oliver, who unfortunately really passed away last year. And I love Mary, I love her work, I love her writing, I just love everything about her. And this is a non-fiction book that she has written about poetry, so I'm guessing it's to do with how to write poetry and advice for that. It might have some stuff to do with reading, like, I don't really know, I just want to read it. And again, it's a book that has had some really wonderful reviews, so obviously I want to get a non-fiction book by my favourite poet, so then maybe I can write some poems that are just as wonderful as hers. And the last book is actually a fairly recent edition, and that is How to Fail by Elizabeth Day. I heard Em from A Little Writer Em talk about this book, and she read it in a reading vlog that she did fairly recently from when Em filmed this video, and it just seemed really interesting, as it is based on a podcast that Elizabeth Day has created called How to Fail, and she interviews people about how their failures have helped them in their career. I believe that's what it's kind of about, and it just seems really interesting and a really insightful and educational read. Can I say educational? Like, I'm gonna say it. I did actually find this book on sale in Waterstones for £5, and it was a hardback, but I didn't get it because, like, I'm on a book buying ban, so even though, like, come on, I know it was a good deal, but, like, your girl didn't go for it this time. But it just seems like a really interesting read, and I have added the podcast to my list of podcasts on Spotify, so it's definitely a podcast that I want to listen to at some point. I have quite a few new podcasts that I want to listen to, which is really exciting. So yes, again, it's a book that is very interesting, and I feel like there is a lot to learn from it, especially as somebody who struggles with the idea of failure. So hopefully this will help me figure out that my failures are not a weakness. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about some of the non-fiction books that I want to read. Again, like I said, I love non-fiction, and I really want to read more of it in the future, both this year and obviously after this year. And again, it's just a new way of looking at things, and it's a very educational way, and I just feel like you can learn a lot from it, whether obviously it's to do with like internal self-development or business or something else entirely. There are so many topics that you can go on, but I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and maybe found a non-fiction book that you would like to read as well. Let me know in the comments what non-fiction books you would like to read, or what non-fiction books you have read and really enjoyed. I would love to know as always, and also if you have read any of the books that I have mentioned on this list. If you like this video, then please make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more bookish videos from me, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and little bell icon so you'll be noted every time I post a new video. As always, I will leave the links to my social media along with the links to my Goodreads in the description down below for you guys. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!